Hi, Professor Dembski Cameron. I am making my video presentation to evaluate and reflect on my mock interview for a therapy session. And I just want to start by saying I was happy with when I watched the video over in general. I think that I found it to be quite hard because I already get nervous in front of a camera and I start overthinking all of the aspects I wanted to incorporate into the assignment. I think what I did well is I greeted the client and asked them how they've been since the last session, and I also provided a summary of what was expected to go over during the session, which was that it was our final session and that I wanted to mainly discuss goals and review the progress that the client feels she's made, as well as how she plans to continue moving forward after treatment and provide resources for follow-up. I think another thing that I did well was active listening. I think my body language was appropriate. I was making good eye contact and nodding my head, but not overly nodding my head, while also verbally reflecting that I understood on occasion. I think that I did ask open-ended questions. I didn't have to ask too many open-ended questions because the discussion kind of flowed. So I was able to listen a lot, and I tried not to interject. I do think that when I did respond, sometimes I seemed inconfident in my response, and I think that's just going to take practice. Even now, I notice as I'm making this video, I have a hard time always gathering my thoughts before I say it out loud and maybe saying what I mean without feeling confident. But I do think that without the camera and with practice, I'll get better at that. I think I definitely noticed reflecting content and feelings a couple times in the video. One was when my client was talking about being grateful when she walked around Santa Monica Beach for where she lived and the location, and reflecting that I was hearing that she was feeling appreciative of the life she's created for herself and her family and her friends. And another time I reflected content and feelings was when my client said that the biggest challenge was losing weight and that she couldn't seem to keep the weight off, and acknowledging that what I was hearing was that she was feeling discouraged, but also highlighting some of her strengths and where she's had success, which was in quitting smoking and spending more time with family and figuring out her retirement goals. And I also helped the client identify some new goals, which were to potentially start taking an art class at the local community college. I think I did well at providing psychoeducation when I asked about the stages of change that she was in, and she wanted a definition on the stages of change, and I walked her through a short definition briefly on pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, and relapse, and how the stages of change aren't necessarily linear, and that you don't have to, there's not an expected number of days to start or stop, and that everyone's different in that aspect. Let's see, some of the things I would have liked to do better is, I think maybe providing a little bit more time for silence. I know that when I did find an opportunity to respond, I would do it pretty quickly. Mainly, I think because I was trying to guide the conversation, and I didn't want, probably like my own nerves, I didn't want her to feel like she needed to keep talking about something that didn't feel super relevant to where I was trying to guide the conversation, especially because it was only a 15-minute interview session. But I do know that providing silence might have created more space for her to reflect on her growth and her strengths, and just be able to talk more about the challenges of therapy and what she was dealing with today still. I think that I did well at terminating the relationship, the therapeutic relationship, because I asked her how she was feeling about completing therapy and normalized the fact that, transitional phases are always hard. So even though our work together was professional, no matter what, most of the time when you spend time with someone, you develop a form of a relationship, and it can feel a little bit sad when it comes to an end, or maybe scary if she feels like she won't have someone to talk to about her problems now, or if she thinks that she's relying on someone to create goals for her, when really the therapist is just working with the client to empower them to work towards their own goals and whatever that looks like for them. I think I also reassured her that if she needed to come back to therapy for any reason, she could call me, and that I would follow up with her. And if she needed any other resources, she could call and I would help her with anything at all. I think that although usually sometimes it's not appropriate to hug in a therapeutic relationship, I think it was appropriate this time because it was our last session and she asked if she could have a hug. So I think that was good. I think I expressed a lot of warmth and empathy regarding her experience and her growth and her struggle with weight loss and her fear around starting to smoke again, potentially in the future. Let's see. Trying to think if there's anything I missed. It's hard. I'll talk about what I would do differently next time. Next time, well, hopefully when I'm actually in practice, it won't feel as much like there's certain steps that I need to take. I'm hoping that I'll feel more in flow when the more and more I do this with clients, that it's just natural that I greet them, open up with the summary of what I want to go over that session, really develop my skills in listening and body language and using motivational interviewing to use open-ended questions to keep the client talking, but not yes or no questions, because sometimes that can keep it short. I want the client to feel challenged a little bit when I ask them a question, maybe to ask them a question that makes them talk about something they don't know, because it helps them explore something that might be important towards how they're feeling or what they actually want and they've never really thought of before. That's kind of a big goal of mine when I'm working as a therapist, is to help people, kind of like to help a client identify their problems if they're in pre-contemplation stage and they aren't even sure what they want to work on. I think it's my job to help them discover what that is and then give them the motivation and encouragement that they can achieve their goals. All in all, I really enjoyed the class. I feel like I learned a lot. Again, I get nervous in front of the camera, but I appreciate you for this course, and I hope you had a great summer, and thank you.